Welcome to the Music Medicine Club live streaming, our October Spotlight event here on Crowdcast, powered by the music4life.com. I am Judith Pinkerton, a licensed board certified music therapist, and I'm dedicated to changing the culture of how we create music, how we consume music that builds resilience and supports us wanting to work well together. I am so excited to introduce a longtime colleague and friend of music therapy, Dr. Kevin McCal. As a recently retired Air Force colonel, Dr. McCal is an experienced healthcare leader with 30 years dedicated to the United States Air Force. His consistent commitment to excellence in mental health care and patient well-being started with earning his doctorate in counseling psychology from the University of North Texas. Since then, he has supervised and provided care in inpatient and outpatient settings and managed medical operations at various healthcare facilities. His expertise spans team leadership, risk management, process improvement, and healthcare service enhancement. Anticipating his transition to a civilian role, Dr. McCal recently completed Music4Life's Music Medicine Clinical Specialist certification training, and with his visionary leadership, wrote the foreword to a new cutting-edge book that is the companion to a new music app with plans to revolutionize mental health care. I am so honored to introduce you to Kevin and welcome him to our Music Medicine Patreons. Welcome, Kevin.
Thanks, Judith. Thanks so much. That gracious introduction. Great to be on with you.
Yeah, thank you. So, it's 2024. So if we circle back 20 years, I have got quite the picture to show here. So circle back 20 years and there we are. We don't look very
Wow.
different, do we?
No, not really. I was looking for some more hair, but I didn't have any there. It's still looking pretty thin. No, that's a long time back. That uniform is long. I haven't worn that one in a long time.
Yeah. So then you were mental health flight commander at Nellis Air Force Base.
Right. That would be equivalent to most people that would understand that as basically a mental health clinic director. So I ran the mental health clinic, which included not only mental health care, but substance abuse care and then any kind of family disturbance, family domestic violence type cases, that kind of stuff too.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And I remember how we were first connected. It was through the base hospital nurse who was at my daughter's baby's delivery. And I had a music therapy childbirth manual, and she saw it and said, "Oh, can I look at that?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure." And then before I left the hospital, I had to go find her to get it back. And she said, "You know what? I have someone I think you need to meet." And that's how it started. Way back in 2004 was her connecting us together. And so then there was something about drumming. And so I brought out some of my drums from my nonprofit clinic and we drummed in your conference room, I guess. Some of the staff there.
Yeah. It's amazing when you think about that. Every interaction you have with people is so important. And to think something like that, where you were totally unexpected, you were there for your daughter, supporting your daughter, and suddenly connected to something that became quite a bit bigger.
Yeah.
I mean, it just really, and of course, I never like to think 20 years ago. That's so long ago too. But just like yesterday, I mean, I remember you coming talking to me. And I remember, being grounded in mental health at that time, thinking, what does this lady want? Because as a mental health flight commander, quite often we would be approached by people who had something new that they wanted us to try. And of course, as you found out, as we talk more, it's very difficult to introduce new things to the military. I don't have the authority at that level to just bring it on. But we definitely found a way at that time to introduce something new and use the military as a way to strengthen and get research behind it, I think. So, but no, that was...
Yeah, so then your first thought was, well, let me find out if anybody actually uses music when they are deployed, because at that point, constant deployments were occurring. You get
Right.
back and you get sent again. You get back and you'd get sent again. And it was customary that you'd be deployed more than once
Right.
during that period of time. And so you did a survey when you yourself got deployed. And this slide was a part of future presentations about what you discovered way back in 2007, right? So just for our viewers, just know that this was like 2 years before invisible wounds was even recognized by the military. So you went out in your deployment, and I think you were in Afghanistan.
Yeah, that one I was in Afghanistan for about 7-8 months. Yeah, and I was running all the basically combat stress response for the country of Afghanistan. So we had units all over Afghanistan, mental health units, taking care of people out and about. Some of them in the middle of war areas and war fronts. But yeah, I think at that time I remember just asking people how much they use music because I was curious. You know, I think before that deployment we had done some of the stuff with security forces at the time too, I think, but along the same timeline. So I was just curious as I talked to people how much music was used. I laugh when I see the iPod because it seems like that was so long ago that we were doing iPods, but that's all I had when I was there. I had iPods and I had I think I had DVDs or CDs that I would put in my computer to play on my computer with music on it. But yeah, it was interesting because I think a lot more people listen to music than I thought would have. It wasn't as easy to carry an iPod with you with earphones as it is this day and age of AirPods and all that kind of stuff. And plus, some of the folks in that location couldn't take certain things with them out into the battle zones. So, because it would give away their locations or cause trouble for them. But it was interesting. A lot of folks use music more than just when they were in the gym. Because you would think that in that time, the thought was people worked out, they listened to music maybe, but more so, I think, than that. In quiet times and times of trying to find peace and distraction, even if that were the case. I still have the CDs that my kids sent to me when I was over there with music on it. So,
yeah,
so
very sentimental value.
Yeah, a very big emotional part of what was there was connection with people back home, because again that was just starting to where we could possibly go online and connect with people on the internet and do kind of early forms of Zoom, I guess, but connectivity wasn't good and we couldn't do it for long and it really didn't always work. It'd be choppy. So other forms of communication, my kids chose to send me music. So it was very sometimes not so welcome because it would bring that emotional connection that you didn't really want to face being apart from them, but other times are very soothing to have it. So, but
yeah. And then there was a book that came out a couple years before that by Colby Bezel called My War, and it had a very interesting playlist in it. And because of this survey that you did, you connected us with Colonel Curry, who was the commander of the security forces at Nellis Air Force Base at the time.
Right.
And so he invited me to come in and actually do a presentation to, there were, I don't know, over 60, I think. We were in a very small room in this presentation. It was very early in the morning, like, I don't know, 6:45. And I only had like 45 minutes that I had to cram all this information in. But I used that playlist from Colby Bezel in the book My War, and then I embellished it with more to follow the music medicine protocol, so it kind of filled out the sections that he was missing. Because if you can imagine, when you're in wartime, you're matching music to the feeling that you need to have, to do what you need to do. And so this presentation was really interesting. This was one of the things that we were advocating for. Is that you want to cross-train your music to use the right weapon when attacking internal enemies, that you manage the adrenaline rush by discriminating what and when to listen to music, that you improve coping ability to stay safe with this kind of education from Music4Life, and that you reduce stress and PTSD with proactive application of the formulas found in the Music4Life music medicine protocol. So the whole intent was to fight this unsettledness that can occur, where you can get trapped in the unsettledness if you're not utilizing music in a really specific prescriptive way. So this was an interesting presentation to these young men and women. And what we discovered was, number one, they wanted the information so badly that I actually doubled my time. Here they are 5 days prior to the deployment. And I had 45 minutes because they had so many other things to do, but they would not let me go.
Yeah.
And Sue Robinson, who was the chief of the Family Readiness Center, was there witnessing all of it. And she goes, I was just amazed. They were so attentive and engaging and discussing with each other what they need to do based upon what you were presenting. So out of that then came more interest. And so let me hide this one and then talk about your connection, again, with Colonel Curry. He was enamored with this because he thought that his security forces just listened to rap and that was it. And he was so surprised from the assessment that they filled out that they listened to all styles of music, and not just rap. And he was so inspired or motivated that he connected us with Dr. Ruck, who is the director of Human Effectiveness Directorate at the Air Force Research Lab at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Ohio. Amazing connection. This guy just happened to be coming to Vegas, and he set up a meeting for all of us to discuss the slide that I just showed and, what was going on. And then a month later, he retired. So, there's a lot of follow through after that with him. And it was still prior to invisible wounds being recognized, and that, the military needed to really do something about that. So then what came out of all of that was Sue Robinson, in partnership with you, Mental Health Flight, wanted to submit a community resilience grant proposal through the base. And so this grant was put together that would utilize Music4Life in training troops about how to arm themselves to be safe in the theater. And she connected me with, the colleagues in Washington, D.C., who approved the grant. But then when it went up the scale, the generals looked at it, not knowing about invisible wounds, and go, what's this? I don't know what this is. And then diverted funds overseas is what I was informed. So that happened twice. We ran it up the pole 2 times. Didn't work.
It was a very financially construed time for the military too. So it was really difficult to get extra funds. But
yeah.
But I think, like you said, the interest that Colonel Curry gave to it, and the surveys that you were able to give to the troops as they were using and going forward, the information gathered from that at least kept pressing one step further to learning something about how we could use it with the military. Music therapy in that time wasn't very well known. It wasn't supported by the insurance company in terms of what the military would turn to for medical care. So we couldn't go that route. So it felt like we just kept chipping away.
And that's what's needed early on is you continue to introduce new thoughts, new concepts, some support in any way that you can get it from programs and surveys and research. And now, it's a totally different show. But there's one more picture here that is sentimental because whoops, that's the wrong one. Sorry, we already looked at that one. Let me get the right one here. This was a fundraising event for my nonprofit, and Colonel Curry is on the left, and he was our MC. And you're on the right, and then Sue Robinson's in the middle.
Right.
And it was just really a very meaningful event to be able to feature the team.
Yeah, each step that takes, because it takes word of mouth. In this case, you had someone from security forces that was interested, which means it wasn't non-medical. And so it wasn't the medical people pushing something. It was an actual operator, actually a person that has been in the field, has people in the field interested in figuring out how to better take care of his people. And that was his big concern, I think, is he knew his young men and women were going into dangerous areas and putting their lives on the line. and he wanted anything and everything they could to stay focused so they could stay safe. And I think that was the key. I mean, and his purpose was making sure they had their best forward when they were in dangerous areas, to protect themselves and their teammates. And then when they came back, to have something to take care of what they were dealing with in terms of whatever they experienced when they were there. So I think the guy had a heart in the right place. He used to give security forces people a hard time for maybe not having a heart, but that guy had a big heart.
Yeah.
He definitely loved his people and wanted to take care of them.
Yeah. So this picture is meaningful because, as soon as that was done, you left.
Yes.
You went on to other pastures.
I did.
So,
yeah.
So it's, your career is so broad and deep. I really want to dive into, the next step was that you got promoted to medical operations squadron commander. You had to leave Las Vegas to go to Oklahoma. And
right.
You were there for a couple of years. I mean, you were in Vegas for 6 years. That was unbelievable. It gave us time to be able to look at this topic, right?
It didn't happen very often, but just all the things aligned that kept me there that long. And being there that long also gave me a chance to get more experience in leadership positions. So that's what gave me the opportunity to go to Tinker and become a squadron commander there. Again, in civilian terms, that's basically like running all the outpatient medical clinics. Not just mental health, but family practice. Other clinics that were outside mental health were under my leadership and my team's care. So did that, like you said, for a couple of years. From there, they decided that I should go on and become a mental health inspector for the Air Force. So I was in charge for 3 years of inspecting all the mental health clinics in the Air Force, myself and one other person. So we took turns traveling the world and spending a week or so in each clinic and evaluating the clinics for how they were doing the job, and not only in probably critiquing their effectiveness, but also making sure they had what they need to do the job as we went around and made sure our policies and procedures were in place that were properly working and doing what we intended them to do, to make sure, again, that people are safe and being taken care of. So did that for 3 years.
What countries did you go to, Kevin?
I was in Germany. I was in Japan, Turkey. Didn't get to England. I always wanted to get to England, but didn't get there. Italy, didn't make that one. But and then around the country in the United States, quite a few of those places. I wound up going to about 35 different bases in the 3 years.
Oh, wow.
And spending time with each of those locations. And it was it was a great joy because it gave me a chance to work with young teams, young mental health, and energetic, enthusiastic folks that wanted to do the right things for everybody. And so it was fun to get around. And of course, you also get to see the innovation across the Air Force that way, of all those young minds working to figure out ways to pretty much use a small budget oftentimes to meet needs that are usually, oftentimes, if not all the times, way beyond the budget. So they had to come up with innovative ways to meet the needs. So learned a lot from all those folks as well. So it was great to travel, and tiresome at times to travel the world. I was on a plane a lot, but still worthwhile in the end. Out of that experience, then I got a chance to go on then and be a squadron commander of a larger squadron up in Elmendorf. Spent about 2 years in that position, a year and a half in that position. Basically the same thing again as what I did with Tinker, only bigger. It was at Elmendorf, to pull up hospitals, so we had more care there. I had more specialists under care. I got to be in charge of an emergency room, so I got to see what that's like in terms of people coming into our hospital that way. Ultimately became a squadron, I should say, a deputy group commander there. So I want to be in charge of the second in charge of the hospital itself. So just more broad exposure to other medicine and other care, including inpatient care, lots of specialists, surgery, everything in that regard. So kind of anything you would think of in terms of a trauma hospital, that's what they did there. We didn't have a trauma level 1 that was downtown, so we didn't do the extreme trauma care, but almost everything up to that point. So again, just more great experience. As a psychologist, exposure I never thought I would have. When I entered the Air Force. Sadly, in some ways, it took me away from doing mental health care because I didn't have the time to do the mental health care directly, but I still had mental health clinic under my oversight. So I stayed connected to it as much as I can. One of the first priority locations that actually used some music therapy in the military. So they had music treatment there in the military, in the clinic. They actually introduced music and art therapy as I was leaving there. So, and they had a TBI clinic there as well. So more, I guess, if you will, we were being exposed to more, catching up a little bit with out in the communities with what's going on and bringing it into the military. And finally, I think being accepted as a mode or treatment style that could be used, especially for TBI and PTSD type care. So from there, I took a assignment to go to what we call USAF SAM. So that's United States Air Force, of course, but it's their training facilities. That's a School of Aerospace Medicine is what SAM stands for. And there, when you mentioned the Air Force Research Lab, that's actually the same location I was at, but they were above us. I didn't work for them, but we worked with or beside, underneath them, if you will. And so I was there as the deputy commander for that program. Didn't stay long. I was there 9 months and got selected to go to Shepherd and become the group medical commander there, which again, that's like running, in that case, wasn't an inpatient facility, so it's all outpatient clinics, but again, all of the outpatient clinics and in charge of all medical care for that installation, which is where we caught up with each other again. We'd been talking in and out along the way, I think, up till that point, but that's where we actually physically got to see each other again.
So you had someone there that was very interested in bringing us in to do a training, and we decided we were going to pick the most stressed out military members, which was air crew chiefs in training. And so that's what we came in for. There were 66 military members that had been selected, men and women, to be a part of this 2-day training. And out of that 2-day training came this picture and this report. So this is accessed on our website as well. But there's all the men and women. And I had a team of myself and a staff music therapist with me. And our kinesiologist also came to do testing. And it was just really interesting to see the faces of those that got to experience the kinesiology effects of muscle testing on particular rhythms. We had military members that didn't believe that was going to happen. And so after they did their, 6 hours of online training the first day, the second day they came in lining up going, I want to be tested, when they found out that he was there, and just could not believe, one after another, their muscles blew out with a particular kind of music and remained strong with the kind of music that they wouldn't listen to usually. But it was just like an eye-opener for, pay attention as to what music you're using for specific activities. So when you're wanting to build muscle, maybe you don't want to be listening to music that will blow your muscle out. You need to change up your music. So it's just not a directive of you can't listen to this. It was just an informational about what are your music listening habits and how can you change it up and do prescriptive playlists that can actually help you stay safe when you're in the theater. So there is an interesting report that came out of that, which showed some statistics of what they actually got out of it. And this is accessed on our website as well, that 92% felt that the trainings were effective for them, that they learned something from it, that 64% said that they actually improved their emotional intelligence after listening to just one prescriptive playlist, and 67% felt that it changed their mood, that they felt better, that it had improvements for them. So interesting report that our viewers can look at and read, which gave us more information about, how does this work and, what do we do next? And so you left Shepherd and went somewhere else again. I don't know. This was like your last position, right?
It was, yeah. It was number, I think, 13 or 14 assignments for the 30 years I was in. Yeah, so I went on to Herbert Airfield here in Florida, actually, where I'm at now, and became the Deputy Surgeon General for the Air Force Special Operations Command. Again, a place I had never been in special operations before, and in that command, it's a completely different command from the rest of the Air Force, as one might assume by its title. When you oftentimes when people watch the war movies out there, the TV programs out there that show any kind of special forces, whether it's the Navy SEALs or not, the Air Force also has a similar team that does those missions as well. And that command is is over what that unit is a part of, I guess. So got to be a part of what I would call the real military heroes. There were many of them within our command doing things that may never be spoken of, but also were just, like I said, doing what's necessary to make people safer, get people back. But anyway, in that regard, I was my boss was the Surgeon General for the command, so that means we basically, as a team, were overall medical assets in terms of that command, which includes a couple medical facilities as well as many other medical teams. So one of the probably largest embedded mental health teams in the Air Force we had. So they were out in the units, not just in the mental health clinics, but out in the mental health, doing the work in the units directly. So they didn't go to the clinic to get help. These people worked within their units and helped as the day went on, day-to-day business, and were a part of their lives on a daily basis. So more exposure, more access to mental health care. And our job was to make sure they had what they needed to do medical business across the command. So a completely different level of work, not quite as interactive as I had before, because most of my work is dealing with, at that point, with leadership at the general's level and higher, making sure we have assets and policies in place to make sure medicine gets done across the command. So more of an office job and a lot of sitting in meetings than I preferred, but it just still had a mission that was worth it, and still making sure that people were getting help. And that's where I retired from.
Yeah, and I think that you had to actually attain the top secret security clearance too.
I did. After all those years and not needing one, I went there and they talked about stuff that I couldn't listen to unless I had the right kind of clearance. So I had to go get that so I could be in the room and be a part of the discussions. So, but yeah, just it was an honor to end the career there and to be in that position. Still adjusting to not being in the uniform. It's only been a few months. It's a weird feeling to actually have to decide what to wear each morning, but I have to do that. So it was time. So
I remember when I was thinking of you last year around this time, and I reached out going, aren't you retiring soon?
Yeah, you caught me off guard on that one. I'm like, wow, she's tracking me. But yes, yeah, that was great. It was great interaction. Obviously, you got me linked in again. Each time you pull me in deeper, I think. This time, obviously, get me interested in one of the courses that you offered. So that was a next step for me as I was wrapping up one job, looking at what's coming up ahead.
Yeah, so you actually completed and attained your badge as a music medicine clinical specialist. And that was a journey that, as I hear you talk about it with others, it's like, wow, this was a different kind of journey that you were not expecting. I loved hearing about your skepticism about the protocol.
Yeah, it's funny because in all these years I've known you, but never understood probably completely what music therapy is, and probably never. I mean, I have some learning to do yet to understand that completely. I don't have that training, obviously, but every time you've popped in or come into my world and my life in the military side, there was always something that you had to offer that would potentially help people, but you have to buy into it first, and to be able to speak to it. Because I mean, for me to go back to my leadership to speak to what you're offering, I had to understand it enough to, I guess, preach its value, and so you came into this and you wanted me to take this course, and I thought, well, graciously you were offering this to me. I'm like, why would I turn down that training or education? So I jumped in, and as I got going in this thing, I had this in the back of my head thinking, well, this music stuff really isn't going to be that effective. It's not something that's going to be helpful. I don't think it's real exactly. I don't understand the science behind it. How could this be something that's useful? You gave me warnings before. I think there was a week-long 7-day thing I had to go through listening to music twice a day. 14 days, yeah. And so, and you helped me with that playlist. We went through, because I remember using the playlist that was presented with the course, and it just didn't click for me. Something wasn't feeling right with it. So I talked to you about it, and you sat down and we went through some music and adjusted some of it to fit me more. And so I gave in and listened. I went and followed the instructions and listened to it twice a day. At first, I had a hard time sometimes listening to it all. I wanted to just stop it and say, I don't need to listen to this, but I did because I had to have faith. And you even described to me that on day, I think you said 3 or 4, it will, everything's going to be horrible. It's going to be the worst. It's going to, and I thought, how could you predict that? That's not going to happen to me. I'm a mental health professional. How can that happen to me? So sure enough, I think to the day, exactly what you described happened. I had this almost emotional fallout, kind of feeling like the lowest of lows, and had that kind of aha experience of, wait a minute, I kind of did the count in my head. I went, wait a minute, Judith predicted this. So I think the hook was in at that point. I was starting to think there's got to be something to this. This isn't accidental that she picked the day on for just me. So as I listened to it further, it did have the effect. I mean, I remember listening to the unsettled portion of it first, and then the soothing part, and feeling the unsettledness. I mean, we had talked about the emotions that might come out for me, even my personal situation, and those emotions did come out. And then the soothing part sort of started to wrap them up and feel like I could manage them or feel comfortable with it. And then, of course, if I listened to the energizing part as the last part of it, I would feel energized. I would feel pumped up to do something to get moving, and almost put beside or behind me the unsettledness that I was feeling earlier on in the listening to it. And then, of course, there was times when I did listen to the evening one and added the soothing back in as a fourth stage, so that would help me sleep, or at least relax, and so it worked, and it was that kind of, okay, so now I guess I have to believe a bit more, and so it's only taken 20 years for me to get me to buy in completely, but no, that's not true. But, and then I took on that to myself, because I had not too long ago had a bicycle accident, and wasn't bicycling as much. And so I finally got back into biking, and was concerned not only at my age, but the fact I hadn't been riding for a long time, that I was going to have a lot of pain and a lot of exhausted tiredness. It would be really difficult to get back in shape. And I really remember the first time I rode, I played an energized selection of music that I thought was fit the energized part for me. And I played that music, and I had far less pain and far less tiredness than what I should have had, considering what I was doing and when I was doing it. So it's helped in my own personal exercise mode as well. In fact, I just rode 2 days ago, and I was laughing. I was critiquing my music that I was listening to as I was riding, going, I got to get rid of that one. That's not helping me. This one's not feeling right. So I got to go out and make a new bike riding playlist, because it's not quite fitting what I want. I can feel it having impact in terms of how I'm riding. So, but no, I think that course was helpful at just a complete more understanding. I mean, every time I dig in more, the more I kind of click in and feel more understanding what music does. I'm talking to people more about music than I ever did before. I think some people are wondering why I'm so nosy about their music, but it's interesting to listen. Like you said, I mean, those young kids back at Nellis, maybe Colonel Curry only heard the rock playing when they were in the gym beating out stuff or doing whatever, the rap music playing, and he never thought that they might play something else in other parts of their lives, or and of course, as we've all gone to wearing earphones, it seems like in this world we don't really know what people are listening to. I mean, sometimes we're thankful that we don't know what they're listening to, because we may not like what they're listening to. It fit our mood or our scenario. So
yeah, but what you mentioned is really a crucial point right now. You need to know what people are listening to, because it could be that they're trapped in what we call chronic comfort zones, and they're actually going down that spiral that could lead to death by suicide. So it can be horrific when you're trapped in a chronic comfort zone and you don't know it, and your music is actually fueling it and not getting you out of it. So what happened then was that you actually wrote the foreword to this book that came out just in August, called Thriving Through Adversity: Prescriptive Playlist to Reclaim Joy, Peace, and Purpose in Life. And it's actually the companion to the Key to Me app, which looks like what you find in that thriving word. So thank you so much for writing the foreword to that book, because it was very telling about what you just described, from going from skeptic to, oh my gosh, this actually does have some meaning for me personally, not just others that are in a bad spot and need some help. So thank you for that, because it then led to what we're doing with the Key to Me app. And we have a call to action button below where people can easily go to the page that tells you how to download the Key to Me app. So that is not a typo. MEE stands for you, or Music Exercising Emotions. And the app seeks to decode how you utilize music to exercise your emotions. Are you trapped in a chronic comfort zone? So you're able to take an emotional profile quiz and find out what your emotional profile image looks like, and then get the results from it that might share more about music listening habits that could be keeping you trapped in a chronic comfort zone, and then leading you to lots of free stuff right now. This Key to Me app is brand new. You can get it on Apple and Google Play. And you can access our trainings, even the training that you took, Kevin, as well as music. You can actually listen to music right now in the Key to Me app. So it is in its version 1.0, and we're hoping soon to start developing the version 2.0, which is what people really want, of being able to create their own prescriptive playlist in the app. That's what version 2.0 will be in 2025. So yeah, so you can go to this link down below and find out more about all that has happened since you've retired. And there is so much more to come. And you know what? I really don't want to say a whole lot about what's coming. People are just going to have to come back and learn about what is next on our next podcast, right?
That's right. I mean, I think that the biggest thing that people have to understand, I don't think people understand completely, is that there's so much more to music than people understand. And I think even those that are listening to it, and folks like yourself and teams like yourself, in terms of music therapists out there that are growing in numbers, they're getting bigger and bigger, and they're not quite as big as the mental health professional world, but they definitely are there. And they're, I think, a supplement to the mental health professional world, to dealing with the mental health struggles out there that so many of our people are dealing with across the country and the world. You know, you and I shared, you talked about the chronic comfort zone, and I shared with you the one point that I used to listen to mostly Christian music on a regular basis. And I didn't really realize I was doing that. It's just on the way to work every day. I put on the same radio station every day, and that's what I listened to on the way back, and thought it was comforting. But as you and I talked, and as I dug into that course and learned more about my music, I realized that quite often that music was locking me into a negative emotional state that I wasn't even aware I was being locked into. That many of the songs reminded me of a situation that was very emotional in a negative way for me in my life, and I thought maybe it was comforting me, when really it wasn't comforting. It was locking me into more of a depressed, sad emotion versus some type of relaxive comfort, I guess, stress-free thinking.
Yeah.
So, you know, that realization was eye-opening and of course, life-changing. I mean, I think that not playing that music all the time doesn't mean I've left Christian music behind. It doesn't mean that I don't listen to it still. It just means I've broadened my choices and moved to other music as well. But I think that's a discovery that all people can make with their music, no matter how comfortable, and I use that word in quotes, they think they are in their music. And I think that's the challenge, especially with those people who are struggling with something in their life, whether it be emotional or mental health related. I just think it's a challenge. I'm excited that, you know, to get the word out to people to use and look at their music, understand their music. And if they don't understand it, reach out for help with someone that can help them understand it. And then use it. I mean, don't go away from it, but use it. And I think that's the biggest thing that people misconstrue, is we're not saying that music's bad for you, don't listen to that music. It's just, we're saying choose the music that fits the situation that you need it for.
Yeah, be very intentional about your music listening habits. Right. And, you know, there's only 10,000, well, 368 music therapists as of June. Small profession. And over the landscape of the United States, there's 1.2 million mental health providers, but there's 55 million clients. And so the mental health crisis that we're in is huge. And so we're really seeking to revolutionize mental health care by training mental health providers in our music medicine training, so that you know how to apply prescriptive music that this app is going to be providing. So right now we're ramping up our network of specialists so that this Key to Me app, when the version 2.0 is out next year, can be utilized by those that are trained to be able to use it. I am so deeply grateful to you, Kevin, for your unwavering support of Music for Life over the last 2 decades. It's grown significantly to what it is today. And by the way, for those that may see Music for Life in other areas, because I know people go, "Is this your website?" It's like, nope, that's not it. So it is a brand, and it's trademarked. And we've been doing this for decades with this trademark, Music for Life. So everybody else that's using it is actually in violation. Oh, but it really represents decades of evidence-based music therapy work in clinic and online, supporting thousands, and we're planning on supporting millions of people to feel better now, really making music work like medicine. Thank you so much for being with us today, Kevin. And
appreciate the opportunity. Yeah, that's been great. And thanks for the opportunity writing the forward too. Another first that you got me into was to write a forward. So great experience. And for those who haven't read that book, please get out there and check out that book. Lots of great information in there about music and what music can do for you in your life.
Yeah, thank you. Available on Amazon and Kindle, hardcover, and paperback. You can get it in any format you want.
Right.
Oh, thank you. Well, I think we are at the end of our podcast. Thank you so much for being with us, Kevin.
Thanks for the time. I appreciate it.
And you've been watching Spotlight on musicmedicineclub.com.